Hi all, John here for a Sunday morning. It's pretty certain that over the course of the time your oil pastels are going to end up pretty dirty. They've been banning around with other oil pastels. It all depends on how you store them as well, but they're going to end up contaminated with bits of other oil pastels on them. And if that's a darker oil pastel, that's going to cause you a problem. Now I'm going to have a look at how I clean them. There's lots of other methods undoubtedly, but this is how I clean them. I'm just going to say things to avoid. This for me would be something to avoid, and the reason I say that, and it's a thin white paper towel, and the reason I say that is because you can clean an oil pastel, but it's almost certain that this is going to end up tearing, and you're going to end up with bits of paper on your oil pastel that you've got to clean off. And not only that, they could end up with bits of fluff, and that's going to cause you a problem in itself. So if I was to use a paper towel, it would be this type of paper towel. It's a little bit thicker. In the UK we call it Blitz. I'm not sure what you'd call it elsewhere, but it's a thicker blue, almost feels like a light material type of paper towel. And because it's thicker and it's not so full of lint, that you're not going to get anything stuck in your oil pastel. And another way you can use this is that you can actually put some mineral spirits on it and use that to clean your oil pastels as well. I have read somewhere that olive oil is a good idea. I'm not sure whether I'd want to go down that line. I've never tried it. It probably is very good, but I think if I was to use this, I would use it with either dry or with some mineral spirits. Depends on what the type of pastel is that you're using. But the one that I use the most is these, and they are baby wipes or wet wipes, whatever you want to call them. And these are an unscented version, and they clean your sticks very well, and I'll show you that in a little while. First off, I want to show you what will happen if you don't clean your oil pastels regularly, and what could happen, and a way of avoiding it and getting away with it, basically. So it's an absolute certainty that you are going to end up with this problem at some point in time, and I'm just going to show you what will happen and how you will get away with it and how you can rectify it, basically. So I am oil pasteling along. I've decided to do a sky. I've made just a small little area here of what would be a background of a sky. And say for argument's sake, I now want to put some lighter colour in there. And I pick up my lighter oil pastel and I'm putting the bottom on, and I haven't cleaned it. Just one of those things, I'm into the groove, I'm into the process of it, and I forget to clean it. And I get this colour on there, and that can spread. Now there are a lot of times, dependent on the colour that you use, that you can get away with it by just blending and colouring that in. However, on this occasion, because it's such a dark colour, that's not so easily done. So I've ended up with all this in here. Now if I start blending, that's just going to spread that, and it's going to make everything look a bit dirty. So what I do is that I find a scraper of some sort, and in this case I use a old type of credit card. Now what I would tend to do is, if it was a small area and really dark, I'd probably just pull out a little area there and just go over, or just blend in. But in this case, because it's quite large, I'll just scrape that off. I'll scrape that off, get back down to the paper again. I'll then get either a piece of towel, a piece of tissue from the roll, or I'll get a baby wipe in this case, and you can see the dirtiness, and I will just pick at that and wipe that off. I won't squeeze it too hard because you can be in danger of breaking the pastel, but if you look now, it's all completely clean. And then I'll just go back over and whatever brown you had in there will disappear, and then you can start blending again. And then you've gone back to the clean of the paper, the clean of the pastel, and you've rectified the situation. Let's just show you how you can make these cleaner. So I'm going to colour a bit of oil pastel on there. I showed you how to do the baby wipe, but I'm going to show you what it's like if you used a little bit of tissue. Now that's coming off of there pretty good, but over the course of time, when you've done a few pastels, this is going to stick and it's going to tear, and you're going to get paper on your oil pastel, and that's not the best. So I tend to use this blue one. It's a lot more robust, it's not going to tear off, it's not so flimsy, and it's going to get everything back to clean, and then you can start colouring again. Of course, without teaching people silly things, once you've opened your baby wipes, this sticky top is usually quite hard to stick down again. So what I do is I have a small Tupperware PVC type of container, and I put these into that so they're all inside something that will keep them wet. And also you can use the tissue to just wipe off all your utensils, and again you can use the baby wipe to get everything's back and clean. I've just got that one dirty by using that blue, or by using it on that blue. So I'll just show you how easy it is with the baby wipe. And of course, one of the best things to do is to also clean the paper. I would suggest, wherever you can, keeping the paper on for as long as possible. This one you can see has got marks, so you can tear it up as you use the oil pastel. But I would suggest keeping the paper on there, not only for the cleanliness of the pastel, but also it also gives it a bit of strength, so that when you do go to clean it, you're not just going to snap the end off. So I would suggest, wherever you can, keeping it in its paper wrapper. This is the container I use for putting my baby wipes into. It's not, you won't stop them drying out, but you'll keep them wet for a lot longer. And even when they are slightly dry or slightly damp, they're still very good. Even if they dry out, I would personally use a baby wipe to wipe my oil pastels with, because it's much better than tissue paper. So I use this little container. You can see I've got some in there already. They're on their way to being dried out. They've been in there months, but they're still wet. And now I've opened this one, I will put that underneath the one that I've got ready to use for next time. Just make sure you seal it up every time, don't leave it open. Okay, mineral spirits baby wipes, brilliant for cleaning oil pastels. Baby wipes are better. I'd use mineral spirits if I needed to with a bit of tissue. One of the best things you can do to keep your oil pastels clean is to keep them in their original containers. But there are some people that don't want to do that, and I understand that. So what I would suggest is to take these inners out and use the inners in the container that you want to use. So if you've, say, for argument's sake, got one of these containers that have the drawers in, you can put these into the drawers instead of putting all your oil pastels loose. And you can keep them all separated from each other, because it's the pastels banging together and rolling together that will cause them to look dirty and grey in the end. So that's another reason for keeping your wrappers on as much as you can. We don't want them rolling and bashing against each other. Like I say, they'll only end up grey and dirty, and you'll just have to clean the whole thing. And with the paper wrappers on, that makes life a lot easier. You don't have an open oil pastel that you've got to then use a tissue or a baby wipe on, and actually saving yourself oil pastel as well, because you're not wiping off a lot of it. So wherever you can, I would suggest keeping them in their proper containers. All the mistakes where the colour has transferred from one oil pastel to the other, scrape that out, start again. A lot of the problems that you will encounter will depend on the oil pastels that you are using. Some of them react a little bit differently, some of them stick and stain a little bit differently. So you'll just have to react to whatever your oil pastels are doing. But at the end of the day, the best thing to do is to scrape out all that contamination. This is a very short video. I hope that's helped. Keep your oil pastels clean. Clean them after every painting. Clean them after every use, so that when you go to reuse that pastel again on the same painting, you're not transferring contamination. Most of that contamination will come from the oil pastel you've already got on your picture, that you've coloured over and then transferred onto the pastel you're using, and then you go to reuse it, forgetting that you've transferred that on. So clean them as much as you can. Keep them clean. If you can keep them clean, you'll have a much better experience painting. And keep them in their containers wherever you can. And the same goes for your worktops and your desktops. You're going to get oil pastel on there because you're going to let them roll around on top of your desk, because you're not going to put them in every compartment every time you use them. So use the mineral spirits or the baby wipes to wipe your tables clean. If you get it on your clothes, I would suggest wiping as much off as you can, scraping off as much as you can, and then perhaps putting them through the wash. Be careful though, because if you have too much oil pastel, perhaps you put an oil pastel in the washing machine by mistake because it was in your pocket for whatever reason, then you're going to have a lot of trouble getting that out. And there are ways, and I would suggest perhaps giving it a couple of hot washers and getting it out that way. Don't forget, I have memberships to my channel. I've started a Patreon. It hasn't done much so far because it's really early days, but if you are to join, then please request what you would like me to do on there. And please look at the memberships. Start at $1.99. I'd like to say hello to my members that I already have. It's Annie Stone. Hello, Annie. And I'd like to say hello to Sue Wright. Hello, Sue. Haven't seen you for a while, Sue, and I hope you're feeling better. And I'd like to say hello to Angie. If only I could see you, but you're too far away. Anyway, wherever you are, please have a great day, great week, and a great year. And, of course, as I always say, be kind and look after yourselves. Bye for now.